I'm feeling so good today. Welcome back to Two Saved Queens. The never-ending nightmare continues, but at least I still have wine, and I still woke up this morning. So,
amen, honey. Amen.
How are we, Miss Devereaux?
You know, I'm actually doing good in these quarantine times, girl, because my daddy, Elliot Stabler, from Law Order SVU, is coming back. Chris Maloney, and I'm a little excited about that. I always loved him. I remember, Oz, the show Oz, where he used to do full nudity, and he's been my white daddy for a long time, girl. Since the 90s, girl. Honestly, since I was a teenager, honey.
I love that. You've been holding him down for a long time.
A long time.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, I was always an Olivia stan because she was just Mariska. Was it Hargitay?
Hargitay, yeah.
Oh, she's just so fierce. She just held it down, and I can believe how long it took her to become captain because they even did that whole kind of sexist ass bullshit where it's like, oh, she's just like the what is it? Like the temporary captain. I'm like, make her captain. She's been holding it down for so long.
Yeah, she said, "I'm the captain now, ho. I'm the captain now." She's been the captain for maybe about 2 seasons now. Do you still watch? You still watch the newer episodes, or you watch the older episodes?
No. It's more one of those like if I'm home with my mama, or if I'm in a hotel room, catch up on some Law and Order. Yeah, it's that kind of tea.
Got it. Yeah, I'm a diehard, so I watch the old episodes like on a Saturday. The reruns, or I watch the new seasons. I love because I actually really like Amanda Rollins, the other girl who's on there now.
Is that the
blonde one? She's been on there since 2011. So
is she the one with the gambling?
Exactly.
The one with the gambling addiction. Ooh, yeah. I feel like somehow Law and Order is just one of those shows where you think you're not watching it, and then before you know, it'll be like, oh yeah, this happened during season this. Like you don't know what season things happen, but you just know shit happened. Like I know someone down with gambling, and what's Ice-T's character's name? What's his name?
Detective, or actually Sergeant Tutuola. He's a sergeant.
Sergeant, yeah.
And it's so funny, but that Amanda Rollins, that's a messy girl because not only does she have a gambling addiction and her family is like messy hillbillies from like the South or whatever. Her sister's, drug addict T and all that, but she actually has 2 baby daddies. She got two kids by 2 different men that she was never married to. So
good for her.
Good for her, right? Good for her.
Show us white women can be messy too.
Exactly.
Trash. But I will say I'm a little 50-50 on Elliot coming back because the Elliot I remember was basically if there was a real Elliot like that. Oh yeah, that's that one that we talked about last week. That's police. Like he broke them laws. So I don't know if he needs to come back. Like what is he supposed to be doing? Just checking in on Olivia? Like what?
I mean, they haven't said just yet, but it is one thing. He's not like a beat cop, like doing stop and frisk on the corners in Harlem and Brooklyn.
He's that one who's laying drugs on you though, because he feels like you need to go down, and it's gonna take too long to wait for them to find another way to arrest you.
I mean, but the thing is he's focused on like pedophiles and like sex offenders. So I mean, the people he's like wanting to lock up, they are not good people. It's not like he's just trying to lock up your brother or your cousin or your uncle or your homeboy. Like,
girl, they somebody's brother, cousin, uncle. I'm gonna just say that.
Yeah. Some like Nicki Minaj's brother, girl. Not trying to throw names out there, but
after I just threw a name out there.
Some girls do have pedophile brothers. I mean, allegedly.
Did he go to jail?
Oh, he did go to jail. Okay, you have to say allegedly. That's right.
Do you have to still say allegedly if they went
I don't
to jail?
know. I'm just trying not to get sued, ho.
Sorry, let's move on. I think, are you ready to take us in?
Yeah, girl. So, the news is moving fast throughout the week. We're doing a bonus episode for you girls.
Yeah, bonus.
And,
yeah, so I would want to start talking about that Miss DJT wants us to open up. And, that sounded gross. Sorry about that.
Who is Miss DJT, girl? Just for the girls who are listening for the first time. Who is that girl? Who is Miss DJT?
President Donald J. Trump.
Yes.
Is he's ready for us to get back. He's ready for us to open up. So earlier this week, Dr. Fauci, our favorite doctor who goes on everybody's YouTube show.
Low key, he's an old man daddy too. Low key, you could tell he was sexy in his day. Honestly,
this quarantine is really getting to you.
Okay,
huh?
yeah,
you just are thirsting every good, somewhat good looking white man over 50.
Yeah, I do have issues. I got issues.
Yeah, we're gonna work through that in another episode. But anyway, right now. Our 45 just earlier this week Dr. Fauci mentioned how he was worried about us opening up too soon, because the biggest thing is about testing, right? It's hard to if you're opening up but then you're not able to kind of be in front of not only get people tested, how can people really know whether they're passing things on or know whether they shouldn't, be opening their businesses, or there's less security around that. So DJT definitely, it seems like he was surprised about that, because he wants our schools open. He wants the country open. He's like, we're ready to do this now. And on Friday, there was a follow-up press conference he did where there were trucks honking in the background, which he took as, rooting for him, although they were protesting.
She thinks everybody loves her, doesn't she, girl?
Everybody.
A lot of the white girls do love her. A lot of the white girls, they do.
But there's just a level of narcissism that's just like, there's not a doubt. Like, is there no doubt that maybe they don't like? No, I guess not. But he's been living that way for a long time. So
a long time, yeah.
Good for her. But he talked about Operation Warp Speed, which he then went on to say it means big and it means fast. Bitch, we know what warp speed. Like, what are you talking about? Anyone who's watched fucking Star Trek or Star Wars, but God, I just can't believe how simple these queens are. Like, just, I haven't listened. So I listened to him speak about this, and it made me realize that Alec Baldwin really ain't doing nothing. Like, there's so much to work with there. Like, it is crazy to literally like, I've always kind of read the transcripts, but to really listen to him give a speech or talk, like, it is something else. So I don't recommend it, especially if you're not feeling a good headspace. But it's something. It is like, wow, look at what we did.
But it is that one black female comedian on Twitter who's really doing him justice. Sarah Cooper.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh. You've seen her when she lip synches him. She does a good job. Honestly, better than Alec Baldwin. Although Alec Baldwin is another sexy daddy. I just want to throw that out there. But
I had to check her out. It looks like her Twitter is Sarah CPR.
Yeah, she's amazing. And her takes on Trump have been getting a lot of traction. A lot of those press conferences, she redoes them, and she does an amazing job.
I had to check that out. Yeah, I mean, anything. But again, he gives the comedians a lot to work with. He went on to then say that vaccine or no vaccine, we're going to be back. Like, he's ready to do this. And of course, it's just so frustrating. As I said, it goes back to this testing idea. It turns out LA, and we kind of mentioned in the past, is the first American city to allow testing whether you have symptoms or not. So that's the other big piece of this, is like, some of the testing that some of the states are allowing is only if you're showing symptoms, only if you have a fever and things like that. But that, there's plenty of people who can be asymptomatic, and there's plenty of people who can just be carriers. So that's not giving all the clues in terms of how many people potentially could be passing on the virus.
I mean, girl, I would tell a girl, if you really want to test, like, lie about your symptoms. I mean, I'm that type of girl who I will, oh my God, my pain is so bad. I go to the ER just because I want to get a scan, and I will...
make sure you got insurance, because ER is
it's no joke.
No penny.
I will exaggerate. If I really want a test done, I will exaggerate my symptoms. So, I mean, just throwing, I'm not a medical girl, but I'm telling you.
A girlfriend of mine recently thought, she felt like she had symptoms, and she recently missed like an email for something, like potentially a interview for something. And she's like, oh, well, but I didn't technically go test it. I was like, girl, how would she know? How would they know? Like, tell them that you almost were on your deathbed. Tell them you went to the hospital. Nobody know. Exactly. They gonna go check your medical records? No.
And especially as a black person, they're not necessarily taking you that seriously when you go to the ER or when you go to a doctor. Especially if you're a black woman. I hate to, that's even more so an issue with black female patients. And so I think that you really, honestly, to make yourself heard, you have to probably exaggerate your symptoms, and do it in a way that's most convincing. You got to put on your best Meryl Streep, Angela Bassett acting job when you in front of these doctors, especially white doctors, because they are not taking us seriously. So you got to make it seem like you're on your way out of here.
Yeah, do whatever you need to do. Because, I mean, the Associated Press has said that 41 out of our good 50 states are still falling short of testing. And this weekend, we're recording this on Saturday, the 16th. This weekend, 48 out of our 50 states are supposed to be reopening. It looks like the only ones who aren't doing are Massachusetts and Connecticut. But even New York is like, parts of upstate New York are going to be opening up, like in terms of businesses and things like that. So be careful out there, y'all. It's we not over. Don't we are not.
Them. I mean, it's not over. Just because Americans got tired of it does not mean coronavirus is
I feel like that's
with.
really what happened. People were like, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm ready for summer.
Right. And then you got Miss DJT out there, further in the narrative and riling the girls up.
Still not wearing masks.
Still not wearing a mask.
Still not wearing. She not mask for mask. Nope.
And in fact, Dr. Fauci even testified before the Senate the other day. And in the Senate hearing, Dr. Rand Paul, who actually had coronavirus himself. Is he a doctor? Unfortunately, yeah, he's somebody's doctor. I think he's an eye doctor, if I'm not mistaken. I have to look.
Oh, girl. I mean, count?
Yeah, but, it does count.
Yes,
actually,
I know. Optometrist.
It does count. But I know what you mean, though. But anyway.
I mean, there's a difference between you and the person who's doing the national response to our country's disease, our country, who's helping to do our national response to a pandemic that is ravaging our country. But yes.
But then he tried to downplay Dr. Fauci's credentials and say, who are you really to tell us about opening up the economy? Why should we listen to the health experts like you? And Dr. Fauci had a good comeback for Rand Paul, just talking about his own credentials and the fact that essentially he's not trying to destroy the economy, but what he wants to do is to make sure it's safe, because if we have to have another shutdown towards the end of the year, then that's going to hurt the economy. That's going to make things even worse, right? So good. So I mean, Dr. Fauci is ready for those girls, and Dr. Fauci is he's actually being a little less careful now that basically the coronavirus task force is on its way out, basically being dismantled. And so I feel like Dr. Fauci is more free to speak his mind, defy Trump a little bit.
Is it? Because I was just seeing, what is her name?
Dr. Deborah Birx. That complicit white woman.
So is it on because it seems... I just saw something about how she's been getting into it with the CDC, which of course, going on a little bit, the CDC was in the news this week with Trump, because actually it's to the point about them wanting to reopen. The CDC had come up with all these guidelines for states and businesses and everything, even from churches to follow. And basically the administration was like, throw that shit out the window. We don't care about anything about that. But come on, free press, protection of the true people, that shit still got leaked. So then they had to kind of, they got thrown on their backside and had to kind of actually say like, okay, well, maybe there's some stuff we can use here. But he got in trouble for that. And I think there's been some contention between him and Miss Birx.
Whose side was she on?
I think she's mixed. Like, I think the feeling is that that in some ways she's used to it because she does seem to have Trump's ear. Yes. And that she's in some ways that he doesn't, I guess the rumors are that he doesn't always like how Dr. Fauci speaks to him, probably because he talks to him like, you're a fucking idiot. Right. What you're doing. But I think she seems to be able to talk him off of doing certain irresponsible things a bit easier. But at the same time, some of the critiques have been like, she likes to be front and center. She likes attention. Apparently the head of the CDC and her worked together way back in the day on cancer research, I think, or something like that. So there's just some worry about her priorities.
She was actually an HIV researcher too. She was actually an HIV researcher along with Dr. Fauci. But my thing about Dr. Birx is that she'll come before us in a press conference and downplay things, downplay the importance of testing, or talk about how Trump is just, he has such a great business mind for data. Like, she's bullshitting us, and she plays that complicit white woman role. So whether or not she, has Trump's ear, to me, she's embarrassing herself and destroying her own legacy. And I applaud Dr. Fauci for at least being more matter of fact. Yeah. And telling us more of the truth, even if it contradicts what Trump says, versus her, who keeps her mouth shut when she disagrees.
There's
Trump.
definitely Yeah,
Yeah.
that's got it. But it kind of speaks to, I mean, sort of the type of people like Dr. Fauci who unfortunately aren't even there anymore. You know, let's talk about Rick Bright, who was a former top vaccine official with the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, who got, kicked to the side. Partly there was a lot here. I mean, partly it seemed like, so this was testimony that he did under a whistleblower complaint that was made, and just he was kind of speaking to issues around, his warnings about shortages, like supply shortages not being taken seriously. He felt like there were some attempts in the process, in the vetting process of a hydrochloroquine.
Hydroxychloroquine, right?
Sorry, hydroxychloroquine. Yes. Thank you for that. Miss that XY, which we know some of that was found in fish cleaner that, some stupid white people had taken and one of them had died from, but was something that Trump had been pushing as a quick remedy. I think it's also found in like malaria medicine, but in a different form.
And I think in the fish cleaner, I think it might have a similar name, but I don't know if it's quite the same composition as the drug hydroxychloroquine.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean,
but the dumb white bitches, of course, took. Hopefully they made it, but I know some of them were taking fish cleaner. So
yeah, but he was talking about how just at every level there was a lack of preparation for this pandemic by the administration, including like securing ventilators, making sure they even got virus samples to help manufacture the vaccine. He made this point, I know Trump in his recent press conference on Friday, who was talking about, reopening and like Operation Warp Speed about, speeding this vaccine to people by like the end of the year, when he was saying vaccines take a long time, and feeling like that was way too optimistic and felt very unlikely, and that the U.S. is already losing time. And he believed that partly why he was demoted and retaliated against was for calling out the administration on these failures.
And Trump has called him a disgruntled employee, I think, in one of those news conferences, or when he was on the green there getting in the helicopter. So he's just trying to downplay him like every other person he's fired. But this man is the real deal. Like, he's telling us the truth.
Yeah, definitely worth if you haven't checking out or even looking at highlights from his testimony. But just something that it made me think about, because there's been so much talk about this vaccine, and I mean, definitely, I guess it's on the front of my mind. Being a California girl, is knowing how there's been like the anti-vaccination movement, and there was some really good articles. There's one in the New York Times just talking about that there's potentially this battle brewing around misinformation, and where public officials, scientists, and politicians are going to have to be going against all these I don't even know if there's still edge cases anymore, movements around, anti-vaccination, especially the idea that even if this vaccine is rolled out and there's like everyone's being encouraged to take it, that in some ways that kind of feeds into this narrative of like, oh, here they are really trying to control us through this vaccine, or here they are trying to hurt my children, which is a lot of the reason that, these anti-vax, like they basically have this feeling that by taking a vaccine, that's where autism comes from. That's where you're actually like, hurting your immune system by taking a vaccine and letting yourself be weaker to fight different viruses and diseases that naturally occur.
And that's interesting, because that's like the white anti-vaccine movement. But I've heard a lot of black girls say they're not going to take the vaccine because they're, really? Of course, a lot of black people have reticence about medicine and medical professionals just because of, the Tuskegee experiment and all the experimentation that was done on black people during slavery. Like, it has its roots in...
Do you want to say a little bit about the Tuskegee experiment, just for anyone who might not? I mean, most people know. Well, most black people know about it.
Yeah, I think, so it was interesting because in Tuskegee, I think they were in the military, these men who actually they were diagnosed with syphilis, and instead of giving the men the treatment for the syphilis, they did not. They gave them placebos, or they gave them some other medications that did not treat the syphilis. And of course, some of these men developed more advanced syphilis later in life that left them debilitated, or I think even in some cases might have killed them. And so it just, instead of treating syphilis, which is very common to military men at that time. So, but that's just one of many things. That's probably the most famous of, big medicine's like abuse of Black people.
Right.
But I just saw a lot of Black people even now to this day are like, oh, I'm not taking that vaccine when it comes out. But you know what? I'm getting that. Wow. I'm getting that vaccine when it comes out because I want to go about living my life. I want to be able to get on a plane again. I want to be able to go to a restaurant again and meet up with my girls. And so I'm going to take the vaccine.
Yeah, but I think there's a real worry in like, well, if some people don't take the vaccine, like, it doesn't work unless we're all trying, you know. I mean, this isn't just like a flu. Yeah. Like, this is something that you really need to protect yourself against. And there are these groups, there are these groups on Facebook that are kind of like promoting, like, don't take the vaccine, don't get involved. And the really interesting thing is sometimes they're not just, they don't always, it's not always clear that that's their intent. Like, sometimes it's about like, healthy eating and yoga and things like that they slip in those messages.
Crunchy moms, crunchy granola, they might, homeschool groups.
But some of those people have money. Like, there are plenty of Jenny McCarthy, who's on Masked Singer as a judge. She's a big anti-vaccine,
and I think she's pulled back from some of her beliefs around that. But now Jessica Biel is has been outed as an anti-vaxxer. Justin Timberlake's wife, and the actress. So yeah.
And I mean, I think you could also, I can't remember this later, there's someone who's talking about, this even gets into other conspiracy theories, like, they talk about 5G being this next, new technology rolling out, that maybe that's the cause of the coronavirus.
That's crazy. And it's totally unrelated, of course. Like, there's no evidence to link those things, but...
I mean, but it's just all these conspiracies, and there was this video that had gone uploaded to YouTube called Plandemic, which was literally, and this is goes into this, like, with all the idiots in the administration, we have to worry about them, but just like this lady Judy Mikovits, like this doctor who was kind of not disbarred, that'd be a lawyer, but basically discredited, and like makes all these false claims about the fact that like basically that coronavirus, that basically like you shouldn't be vaccinating against it, that's not the way to fight the coronavirus, that you shouldn't be wearing masks. And part of the reason that some of these things were grabbed onto is because there was so much, there was a lack of a clear messaging from the administration about, should we even wear masks? We just were talking about today that like Trump is still not wearing masks, Pence is still not wearing masks. So it's like that just leaves credence to the idea that like, oh, masks aren't the way, that's actually how the virus gets spread. Like, this video got 8 million views before it got taken down in like 48 hours. And it kind of goes to some of my issues with like Facebook. I had a friend who was thinking about applying for a job at Facebook, and I was like, bitch, that company is evil. And yes, every company has evil things to it, especially under capitalist system, blah 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 blah. But there's just something about Facebook when I think about the reasons why we're in this situation, the reason why we got Trump, like misinformation and the spread, and them just always wanting to be like, oh, we're just the platform, we don't have anything to do with it, people can just say whatever they want. And they are, in these small groups, people are saying whatever they want and talking about conspiracy theories. And YouTube was trying to get in front of it, but there's so many videos, they're literally looking at billions of views and billions of videos on their websites, that yes, it only got 8 million, but that's still 8 million people watching a conspiracy video, and it takes them time to take these things down, and the damage is already done. People can still repost the video, they change the name, they hide it, they put it in the secret Facebook groups that Facebook doesn't police as much as like more public facing groups, and misinformation spreads.
Sometimes the journalists get and infiltrate those groups and expose like the white supremacist Facebook groups and all that. Basically, we're relying on journalists to do it, because Facebook doesn't ever police those kind of groups. And really, to me, Mark Zuckerberg is a quintessential both sides girl. Like, he's the quintessential girl who's trying to, all information is equal, and we don't like to police content, and we just want to be a platform for everyone. And my issue, though, is now I think Mark Zuckerberg has actually come out, especially when Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders were still in the primary in contention for the Democratic nomination. Mark Zuckerberg has almost explicitly come out in support of Republican policies, and basically not how Republicans basically don't want to police these platforms. Like, he's basically come out in favor of that sort of policy, and even considered donating to some of those Republican groups and Republican organizations. So Facebook has become a very evil platform. Honestly, it really has. It really has. I think we have some good news, though.
Thank you. Fact, wonderful. Bring us out of that.
Yeah. Bring us out of that, because we got to get out of the darkness sometimes and into the light. And, it's funny because today we record again on May 16th, the Saturday, and President Obama gave a commencement specifically for HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities today, which he did one for the people. We got big ups for Obama because, we rarely hear him, or rarely does he get credit for kind of explicitly doing anything for black people. And so he did one for the HBCUs today for all the 2020 grads who couldn't have their official graduations on site. And he once again mentioned failures of leaders on the coronavirus issue, which many took as a slight against Trump, another slight against Trump. And so I was just proud of him for that, because not only is Obama coming out more forcefully, even though he didn't mention Trump explicitly, but also doing one for the HBCUs. And tonight he will be doing one at 8 p.m. Tonight on Saturday. So by the time you all hear this, it will have been done. But he's doing one that's going to be broadcast on the 4 major networks: ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox. And of course, Miss DJT is going to be jealous. Okay. Miss DJT, Miss Donald J. Trump, loves her media coverage, and she's about to be mad. So expect a bunch of Obamagate, conspiracy tweets tonight and railing against the media, because, of course, the whole reason she's president is because she ran being jealous of, this black man who was president. So,
birtherism, conspiracies about the fact that, signal boosting, that kind of nonsense. But real quick, the one thing I really took from the speech was the fact that he talked about Ahmaud Arbery. Like, he talked about in terms of like that it is really important as black people to both find allyship in the struggle of other people, but also to look toward our past, to look for the trailblazers who have, done this work, to look at the forefathers and foremothers to really feel inspiration to get through this moment. And I really appreciated that. Like, I definitely have some critiques of Obama, but I definitely think this was a moment where I was like, yes, my black president, I've missed you.
Amen. We all miss him.
But I think your point about like Obamagate, like, and we're not going to spend too much time on this because it's literally just a deflection. For those of you who don't know, Obamagate was a hashtag that Trump was tried to start last weekend off the back of unmasking of basically the clarification that there were previous members of the Obama administration who had basically had warnings, I guess, or just been notified that there were concerns around Flynn. And it just kind of plays into this idea that Trump feels like he's been set up with all this Flynn stuff and Russia stuff, and just feels like it was a setup by Obama to like for him to fail and all this other bullshit. But really, it just feels like, girl, we don't like. At this point, 89,135 Americans have died. Stop fucking trying to distract us about bullshit. Like, she's so obsessed with Obama, so obsessed with trying to find someone else to blame than her fucking self and all these fucking crooks that he put in office. Like,
Obamagate is the new birtherism. Like, it really is. And actually, there's a good piece in the Atlantic that talks about that. And so, it really is. He's just trying to, build that base again of racist white people who just have so much resentment of Obama for being a black man who became president and for all his achievements. And so this is just another form of that, and trying to distract us, like you said, from these 89,135 Americans who have died because of his inept response to coronavirus. So, but yeah, just kind of along those same veins, talking about Michael Flynn and Attorney General Bill Barr, the black federal judge in D.C.
Ooh, come on, say it again.
Federal judge in D.C., Emmett Sullivan, who's a Bill Clinton appointee, is not dropping the case against Michael Flynn just yet, even though Attorney General Bill Barr and the Justice Department have formally dropped the case. But the judge really has the final say. And in fact, he's inviting amicus curiae, or friend of the court, meaning he's inviting third parties.
Basically, that's like outside people. Yeah, he's like inviting third parties. Basically, like, I don't trust either. Like, somebody else.
Exactly. So he's inviting third party groups to come and make the case against Michael Flynn, since the Justice Department won't. So that it.
And they could even added another judge on there to even review the case as well.
Exactly, because so many people, so many legal scholars, so many people, former Justice Department officials, are completely outraged about the Department of Justice dropping the case against Michael Flynn. They think it's a miscarriage of justice, and of course, political interference on behalf of the Trump administration. So Judge Sullivan basically said, okay, I'm not dropping this case just yet. We're going to have a third party look into this and make the case against him. And of course, the move was opposed by Flynn's lawyers, who argued that it would be inappropriate to allow third parties to weigh in on the case. But Judge Sullivan does not play these games. In fact, he even accused Michael Flynn of treason one time, because basically what he's being accused of is lying about his contacts with the Russian ambassador. And what happened was, even with Susan Rice and even possibly other members of the Obama administration, what they were doing is they actually, of course, were spying on or recording calls of the Russian ambassador. And just so happened that Michael Flynn happened to be an American that he was talking to. You know, whether it was authorized or not is unclear, but, you know, they thought that Michael Flynn was compromised because he was lying about his Russian contacts. And so, and of course, he did lie to the FBI when he was interviewed about his Russian contacts. And so it was, you know, Judge Sullivan actually said that basically Michael Flynn's guilty plea, or some element of his defense and then taking back his guilty plea, could even constitute perjury. So Judge Sullivan is not playing with Michael Flynn.
He is not,
or the Department of Justice, or Bill Barr. So,
and there was a really interesting CNN article just about the fact that, like, you know, in some ways, if this goes against Trump, you know, once, and goes, you know, kind of puts him in the corner, and he tries to pardon, that it makes it look even more fucking shifty that this had, like, so it makes it even more clear that basically you were just using, you know, Barr and the Department of Justice to basically protect yourself, which is not what you're fucking supposed to do.
Of course. I mean, of course, it never happened in the Obama administration, but, you know, who's keeping tabs? So.
Who's keeping tabs? We are. Bitch.
we are. Exactly.
So then, in another story, this is maybe mixed news. There's some good. Mostly good. I mean, the bad is really about whether it can come to pass. On Friday, there was recently a vote by the House of Representatives on the HEROES Act, which is basically the new CARES Act. This is a $3 trillion package. It did pass the House, which is democratically controlled. So really the trouble is about Miss Senate and Miss McConnell. What's included in here is a lot of great things. Personally, you know, as a progressive girl, there's some things that I wish had been taken a bit further, because of course it's going to get knocked down a bit by the other side. But still, another round of stimulus checks. So, you know, another $1,200 come into your pockets. No, I know. Basically going to pay that rent that's overdue. You know, additional loan payments. So I think the loan payments are $10,000 on federal, but even $10,000 on private, which I'm happy about because I still have some private loans. Hello. An extension on, you know, some of these loan forgiveness to 2021, federal unemployment extension, $13 an hour additional hazard pay for all essential employees, which kind of speaks to the reason that they're calling it the HEROES Act, to truly, you know, support the people who have been on the front lines and doing, you know, really taking care of us during this pandemic. Another point, which is very close to my heart, I definitely have families being affected by not being out of a job and still needing to pay their rent, support, like rental support, you know, creating this kind of fund that people can apply for. Basically, I'm guessing that you just show that, like, oh, you've gotten laid off due to coronavirus, and basically apply for this to get rental support with your rent, and also mortgages wrapped in there as well. And Democrats coming through to save Miss U.S. Postal Service, which the Republicans have been trying to privatize for years and basically just try and get rid of.
And of course, right before we probably are going to have to mail-in vote in November. So very convenient that the Republicans want the USPS to go bankrupt, you know, the Postal Service right before. I mean, because it's unclear whether we're going to be able to vote in person in November based around what coronavirus does in combination with seasonal flu. So, you know.
Yeah, and I know California recently has, you know, made it mail-in voting possible, but, you know, it's a state level thing, that, or at least the federal government leaving it to the states, and we know how some of these states be acting, especially when it comes to voting rights of certain people. The other thing I just wanted to say about the HEROES Act, like, just things that I think, you know, partly because, again, there are things I think that are really amazing about it, but just to kind of put in perspective, you know, some of the more progressive, you know, congressional members, I think they call it the CPC. So it's people like AOC, people in that, like the squad were kind of pushing, and others were kind of pushing for, was not just to get another kind of one-time $1,200 payment, but even to get like monthly payments, to get even more support, not just getting $10,000, to get $30,000.
And those monthly payments would have been for how much? $2,000 a month, right? Is what the progressives are pushing for. Yeah. So
it was so young. And there are other countries that are other countries that have even been like, in terms of trying to get people not even laid off, have been taking, I think like the UK, Canada have even been giving between like 80, even, starting at more like 70, even 90% of like people's salaries to kind of keep them employed, to kind of help with that. So there is countries that are going a bit further. So I think there's nothing wrong with pushing it a bit, especially knowing what the kind of pushback we know we're gonna get. Honestly, I don't know what your opinion is, girl. I don't think she's gonna pass.
Right.
Partly, I think it's because
I don't either. It's already getting pushback from both Trump and McConnell. So I think there's no way that even the additional $1,200 payment, along with the other, the $13 an hour hazard pay for essential workers, and none of this is going to get passed, unfortunately.
So I think that's why I'm frustrated, because I'm like, you should like go hard with it, because I'm like, in some ways, like, this is also a political act. I think in some ways, like, knowing how Republicans are these days, like, then make it so clear, knowing that we now have Biden as a representative, to inspire the girls to see that, like, yes, Democrats are working, but no, we're really working. We're really fighting these fucking people for you. And that we really are pushing to do something different. Because $1,200, like, even the past $1,200, even another $1,200, like, people already been off for 2 months. Like, that's still not rent in a lot of major cities. Like, so I think they could have gone a bit harder, but yeah,
in
like,
Detroit, in Michigan, they're going to start evicting people on June the 12th. So you know how there was a moratorium on evictions during the coronavirus pandemic, but now I guess
that ends.
It looks like it ends on June the 12th, unless the governor extends it again.
And seeing quotes from like McConnell, like, that he doesn't think we have the urgency of acting. Let me give his exact word. I don't think we have yet felt the urgency of acting immediately. That time could develop. I don't think it has yet. And you're literally talking about people potentially about to get evicted, but here we have the Senate Majority Leader saying that I don't think there's any urgency yet.
What a ridiculous man. I mean, to me he's the enemy. Like, Trump is one form of the enemy, and he's the more powerful form of the enemy, because he's way more I won't say powerful than Trump, but he's way more effective, right, in getting those evil judges in, and
right,
and constantly derailing progressive legislation on behalf of the American people. I mean, he is absolutely the worst.
Like, he's playing the long game. He's a part of the type of Republicans, like we're talking like Newt Gingrich, like those types who've been playing this game who've been setting up for us to get to this moment where the Republicans can literally continue to steal elections, continue to constantly be voted in, despite literally having like a minority base. Like, for decades. Like, this is their moment, and they are heartless, and they are not playing by any of the old, political playbooks. Like, just seeing, there was recent news about Rich Burr, who's a North Carolina senator, having to step down because due to an FBI probe about him selling stocks ahead of the pandemic. Like, here's a Republican who got inside information. He was supposed to be using this information, I think he's on the Intelligence Committee. But
he's the chair of the Intelligence Committee.
Chair. So the fucking chair of the Intelligence Committee. So you're getting the most updated information that the rest of us Americans don't have. Like, bitch, if I knew that there was a fucking pandemic coming, I'd sell my stocks too. Like, you don't see anything wrong with that. And then there's literally, and then you're going to go out to then bail out businesses. Like, oh, don't get me started. But just seeing that that's still happening at the same time. And just, he hasn't been like, he's still in office. Yes. Like, he had to step down, but I bet you he'll be put back, just like that other fucking racist.
He only stepped down as chair of the committee. He hasn't stepped down from his seat, so he's still, even though, I mean, the FBI basically issued a raid on him, so, for insider trading. And it's so interesting, too, that, like you said, how Republicans are just so for corporate welfare, but never for helping out people. Like, Mitch McConnell, Richard Burr, etc. But even another thing that the Republicans are really pushing is basically liability protection for companies. So, like, how they're trying to force, how companies are trying to force people to come back to work even when it's not safe just yet. Basically, the Republicans want the businesses to be absolved of all liability should their workers get coronavirus while working. so that people cannot sue their employees for negligence if they get coronavirus while working.
Because let's be real, like, or at least this is my perspective. Your job doesn't care about you. These companies do not care about you. The reason they're allowing you to work from home, the reason they're allowing, saying like, oh, be remote or don't come in, like, okay, maybe some of them care about your welfare and your health, but really it's because they don't want the liability. They don't want to get sued. They don't want you to have gone in and either catch the virus or pass it on to your mama or your grandmama or your granddad or your dad, and then be able to say, I had to you forced me to come into work. I'm now suing you. Because, Americans love to sue. But that's my perspective.
Right, so they won't. So the Republicans don't want you getting that extra $1,200, but they do want companies having protection from your lawsuits. So just keep that in mind in November. Vote. What did President Obama tweet the other day? He tweeted one word: vote. Okay, in November.
Ooh.
Yes. And just kind of getting back into some lighter, better news. For some of us, yeah. So Howard Stern basically has come out and said, he has a big base of white male listeners, right? Of course, Howard Stern's audience is heavily male, heavily white, probably a lot of crossover with Trump voters. And he basically, he lives in the New York area. He is seeing New York being ravaged by coronavirus. And he said, you know what? Trump hates you. Okay, Trump has always been someone who loves wealth and celebrities, and he always wanted to be around celebrities and be in the limelight.
And I feel like he's known Trump.
He knows Trump. Trump has been on his show countless times. Like, they actually were friends prior to this, prior to Trump running for president. But they were actually friends. Trump was a frequent guest on his show, has said a number of outrageous things. He used to talk about womanizing on his show. And it's funny because... but he was saying that, Trump has always been someone who wanted to be around celebrities, invited a bunch of celebrities to his wedding, has always been interested in celebrity culture. And he really doesn't like all these, white working class people who form his base, right? He really has a disdain for them, right? But he just pretends, he bamboozles them into thinking that he's for them when he's really for the wealthy, for tax cuts for the wealthy, etc. And Howard Stern says, really, Donald Trump hates you, right? And not only does Donald Trump hate you, but now I hate you too for voting for him. And, that was actually, Howard Stern actually, I was proud of him because essentially he was going against his own base, his large base of white male listeners, many of whom are probably Trump voters or supporters. And I guess he's got enough money where he doesn't even care anymore. And a lot of them, of course.
Oh, Howard Stern will be fine. And that's the kind, again, we've been touching a little bit on allyship. That's a white ally. That's the kind of, I don't even know if we fully call them out, but that's kind of what we need going to elections. Like, tell your parents, tell your friends, like, white people talking to other white people and saying, you're trash if you're going to vote for Trump. Trump doesn't give a fuck about you. He doesn't care about you. Like, we don't need our Joe Rogan types who are basically like, oh, maybe I was going to vote for Bernie, but now that Bernie's not in it, yeah, maybe I'll vote for Trump. Like, no, we don't fucking need that. Like, save that shit. No, we need what Howard Stern says. Like, if you think this is what Trump really thinks about you, and if you're still stupid to think he has your best interest at heart, I fucking hate you.
I love that. I always secretly had a little love for Howard Stern. I used to watch his late night show.
You are feeling the white men today.
Oh no, not that kind of love. Not that kind of love.
Oh okay. No, okay.
Not that kind of love. No, just secret little. Yeah, just a little. Like, I just used to when I was a teenager. I used to watch his show at night on E, and I used to love him and Robin.
I like him. He has a lot of hair.
Not that kind of love. I got some standards. I got some standards.
With a lot of hair.
Yeah, you do actually. Maybe that's more your type.
Keep trying it, ho.
I'll stick with Chris Maloney.
Okay, you stick with Officer Stable. Or sorry, Elliot Stabler.
Elliot Stabler. Yeah. Yeah, and then also too, there was a new Entertainment Weekly cover celebrating LGBT professionals. Professionals in Hollywood.
Yeah,
and that was just really interesting because who they chose to include and who not. Which is kind of an interesting thing, right? Do you want to talk about that more, Miss?
Yeah, because I'm an entertainment girl. I live in Miss LA, and I saw this like going around on Twitter, and I just thought it was an interesting. Like, I actually don't. Compared to what we've been talking about and everything that's going on, like anything even controversial about it is like, I guess, girl. But right. I just thought it was
because there was some representation. Miss Rue's included.
Yes, you see Mama Rue in a cute.
Laverne Cox.
Mama Rue's wearing a cute little fringe outfit with a nice long wig. Laverne Cox.
Janelle Monáe, right?
Little Nas X is there. But for me, it was more like there was just one glaring omission. I mean, and there were just some addition. I mean, in terms of like, Hollywood is very white, but in general, like the people that were, they had Ryan Murphy there. They had Dan Levy, who did Schitt's Creek, great show on Netflix. Really funny, love it. I don't know if have you ever checked out Schitt's Creek?
Yeah, I love.
Yeah, so Dan Levy's on there, being held by John Waters. John Rose, iconic queer, filmmaker, director, writer by Hairspray.
George Takei is featured.
Yeah, so there's some more representation there. Miss Ellen, our problematic lesbian queen, Miss Ellen is there. But for me,
Ricky Martin.
But for me, I think what was missing was like, where was Billy Porter? Like, girl, how are you gonna do it? Like, especially for like someone who is black and so fiercely gay and Hollywood and had his moment with Pose and musicals, like Kinky Boots, and I was like, where's Billy Porter? And the people that they do have there, like Marlene Dietrich, fine. I appreciate Marlene Dietrich. They had oh god, now I'm blanking on his name. What was it?
Rock Hudson.
Well, I'll get to Miss Rock Hudson. No, before her, I want to talk about Freddie Mercury. Again, okay.
Oh, yes.
I mean, even I don't think of Freddie Mercury as even Hollywood, but Rock Hudson, that girl, I'm like, okay, y'all pushing it. Miss Rock Hudson, she didn't really even come out. I mean, I feel like you could argue whether she even came out. Like,
it was the
girl,
very
what?
end, yeah.
And then they got this Stonewall brick there. I don't even know what that's about. Like, they got a brick right behind Lil Nas X between him and George Takei. It's like, what was the brick for, girl? So there's some choices that were made, but I don't know. So the main omission for me is just Billy Porter. Like, y'all trying it with that one. I could also see Wanda Sykes be there, but
Wanda Sykes should have been featured there too. I feel like I think that's an omission too, a pretty glaring omission. But I mean, I will say I think to do this effectively, they really should have had a committee with a lot of representation. No, that's the only way you're going to get every person, every important person in Hollywood.
A committee. What do you mean committee?
To choose the cover, like to choose who's going to be on the cover. You can't just rely on like 3 or 4 people choosing.
Or it's like, or you can't just rely on if those people are mostly white. Are those people like that's about what representation counts? Like. And I doubt EW doesn't have people of color or queer people of color on their staff to speak up. And maybe they did speak up, or maybe they were on that committee and they just got outvoted, being like, oh no, it'd be, Rock Hudson is having his moment because Hollywood's on Netflix and we need to speak to that. Right. And it's like, I guess, girl. But, you never know what's fully happening behind the scenes. But definitely that Billy Porter thing, y'all fucked up with that one.
Yeah, they messed up on that. They did.
But speaking of entertainment, it's kind of like a good lead-in to kind of talking about some other types of news. There was recently an article in the LA Times about speaking to creators of color, just about kind of how they feel about coronavirus as affecting their work and TV, and this recent not even just push, but this recent plethora of shows that are showing diverse experiences, showing different Black experiences. I think you brought up the question, and I think I kind of answered it in just saying like, yes, I think this is a great moment to the Black TV. And there is this great quote here from Kenya Barris, who we talked about last week, creator of Blackish and the new Netflix show Black AF, saying that there's nothing this has been nothing short of a Black renaissance in film and TV, and just feeling like, yes, this is this great moment, but now, some of the industry itself, the entertainment industry itself is kind of going into survival mode. People aren't going to movie theaters. Like, in some ways, yes, people are more watching TV and consuming content, but that's going to run out. Like, you can't create, or you have to create it in different ways, because how are you going to film a live action show, right now you can't even do it. But also there's just all these new safety precautions that are going to need to be implemented, and new ways of being on set and taking care of your health, especially because, like we've been saying, we think this coronavirus is going to be around for a while, so it's going to make things more expensive, and maybe that's going to be the difference between another Black show being greenlit to be made or something else that maybe people aren't going to be as willing to take certain chances, especially knowing that certain things might cost more than they did previously.
Well, Tyler Perry still said he's going to produce, he's going to move all his actors onto his new studio property.
Yeah.
So I feel like
it's always,
he's going to be creating.
Yeah,
right?
but it's always, we're saying, like, in some ways, and that's, I think, the thing that, like, we didn't actually really touch as much on Tyler Perry. Like, I think there's there's a lot there with Tyler, but I think I'd always give it credit. Tyler Perry is fucking amazing because he's able to do his own thing. Like in some ways, Tyler Perry is his own beast. Like that is not how the rest of the Hollywood industry functions, and most of Hollywood, most of people,
especially being and he's in Atlanta too. Yeah. I think that allows for a little bit of difference.
It allows that, but also he just doesn't need to go. He's not going to white investors. He's not going to the white studio heads to try and make the case for why this thing should be done, or why, as the article talks about, someone who was working on I think a film that kind of like has some like difficult Black themes. Their investor just pulled out because they're like, actually, we just think people want things light or more fun, so they want to deal with anything that's going to be too heavy. He doesn't have to worry about having those arguments because he's paying for his own shit. He greenlights his own stuff. He doesn't have to worry about it, and that's the kind of stuff, like those decisions get made often by white people and often by people who already have certain preconceptions, certain ideas about what's going to work for mainstream America. And I think there's a worry that will be harder going forward. I think Gloria Kellett, who was one of the co-creators of One Day at a Time, was worried about this momentum dying down of this desire for more diversity and inclusivity in terms of TV and film. And by the way, it was still not as great. Like, it was better. And I know Kenya was saying, this is like, a renaissance. But even then, that's still not as good as it could be, in my opinion.
Right. Well, I mean, we have to remember coronavirus. I mean, the pandemic at least won't last forever.
No,
right?
For
at
sure.
Some point, we're going to go back to a new version of normal, and so hopefully, we can come together and make sure that we are supporting this kind of content when it comes out. And
I think that's really valuable. But I think even if coronavirus, I think the effects of productions getting, like, those things can have long-lasting ramifications. But I think that's why it is really important to support, buy Black, support Black and queer, I guess, but Black and queer, but LGBT, to support these shows, like, to support these creators, especially even in a time right now, because it is a hard time for a lot of, creative individuals, creative people.
Yeah, and support those Black OnlyFans.
Oh, girl.
Right. That's content too.
Oh, yeah.
That's content, right?
I thought you said Raheem is fine. Raheem is fine. We don't have to worry about Raheem. Yeah. It's okay.
Max Connor. There's a few of them. There's a few of those girls.
Maxes. Okay. I take Raheem over Max. Anyway,
me too.
But we still got some enlightening to do. So we thought we were done, but I said that I still have some things to say about Insecure, and so we are going to do it. So Enlightened Judys, this week this Monday we're still not done talking about Insecure, and we also had a question come in. About Black AF. So we'll also talk a little bit about that. But Insecure, I'm gonna start this off. Why I stopped watching it. I think we could just start there. So I don't think I did ever answer that question, that point when I said, like, I did start Insecure. I made it about halfway through, and for me, there were two main reasons I stopped. One is, like, I would think, and it's like, I don't know why it really hit me, but I think I was really over the fact that, like, Issa cheated on Lawrence. I was like, bitch. Like, I get it, but I was like, bitch, you cheated on this good. Oh my God. It really gagged me. It really gagged me. Okay, so I'll just say that. Well, but actually, I think the bigger thing, weirdly enough, when it hit me when I rewatched, was the episode where Molly stopped dating that man because he was bi. Or not even because, I don't even know if you could even call him bi. He said he hooked up with a guy once. To be that vulnerable and then to say something to someone you're dating. And I love that it was just felt so mature. And then to see how immature she was. And we know, especially season 1 Molly, that girl wasn't in therapy yet. She has some things to work through. Right. But that really turned me off. And I think it was partly triggering.
But that's a very real thing.
No, absolutely.
I mean, a lot of Black women would not date.
But I think that's why it's so triggering, is because I've talked to some of my girlfriends, and I've even tried to push them on it, because I've talked to some of them about how, I'm speaking about my Black girlfriends, about how, like, how they will say, like, oh, no, I could never date someone bisexual. And it's like, well, why? And they're like, it's just something about it. And I'm like, but girl, you can't compete with, like in some ways, they, like, the idea of, like, oh, I would rather he cheat on me with a woman than cheat on me with a man. And it's like, is that better? And it's like, well, yeah. And I'm like, but cheating is wrong, but like, you weren't going to be competing with that man in certain in certain areas either way. But I think there's just a little bit of like homophobia there, just a little bit, I don't even know if it's homophobic, but a little bit of insecurity
I think for Black women, I think it's about. I think a part of it is the HIV risk. I think that's a huge part.
No, I'm not going to say that's not a part of it, but I think
on the DL from the mid 2000s.
Okay, I'll give you that. I give you DL. I don't know about the HIV part. Like I think HIV is maybe a thought, but I don't think that's that first thought. I think it's more about, oh no, I can't be with no DL, man. I think that's more that T.
I mean, I just know that I've had this conversation with a number of my Black female friends, and some of them say, oh, it's because I can't compete with a man, not that you should have to compete with anybody, right, male or female, but it's more along the lines of a lot of them, definitely, they feel like the HIV risk is greater if a man is going to sleep with another man, which, I mean, I've heard them verbatim say that. And so, I mean, it's hard for me to argue that in terms of Black women not wanting to date men who are bisexual or have a gay history. It's something that you can't really, argue with, because it's like, okay, there probably is some heightened HIV risk, or even if there isn't because he's being safe or whatnot, it's still something that you fear that I can't take away.
Yeah, I respect that. I guess it's just the way that Molly did it was like, Molly didn't talk about that. Molly was just like, no, he's gay. Like the way Molly did it was messy and immature, and I just wasn't into it, and it turned me off. But
I mean, and she usually is messy and immature. Yeah, honestly, like her character is not fully developed, and yet I think that is part of what's so endearing about the show, because it's showing some of these realities. Yeah, right? For sure. And and I think it's so funny though, because you and I have this kind of debate all the time about Daniel versus Lawrence. I'm team Daniel all the way. It's not just aesthetics for me. It's not, even though Daniel is so fine. Oh my gosh. Whew, that man is everything. But it's really, and I think Lawrence is handsome too, but it's really about Daniel. I think he was a provider for Issa. Like, he provided her a place to stay. He was always looking out for her, making sure financially she was okay, and I just think that was a really important thing that Lawrence did not provide for her.
So here's devil's advocate. You don't know that at the time we meet them, when we come into the relationship, he is not doing that, but they've been together 5 years. So we don't know at the time before that he has in the past, I'm sure, provided that for her. Like, we don't know either way, but I would think they had. And I think in some way,
it's said in the show, in the show at some point they say that he has not been working for, I think it's for a few years, right? I think in the first season they talk about
for a few years, but they met in college. They've been together 5 years. So it's like,
but that's unacceptable for a man not to be working.
Girl, you sound so like, my man gotta have a job. My man gotta be working. Exactly. Girl, you don't get the fuck out of here with that. Shut up. I can't stand you.
Girl, I'm used to a certain lifestyle, I mean...
Oh, but
and so is Issa. You saw that house Issa grew up in with the swimming pool. Like, she's used to.
Girl, but she's been hard on her luck for a minute. I think she's grown accustomed to something to live it a little bit.
Something a little different.
Yeah. But I guess, and I get why. I get that, and I think there's something to Daniel being there and being a good place for support, and I think that's why there's that feeling like, oh, they should be together, but I think ultimately they can't be together because there's just too much history. There's too much baggage. Like, it's just mess. Like, you are I think any relationship, and again, you could say I'm wrong, you could, disagree, but I think any relationship that starts from a place of cheating, or that starts from the fact that like let's be real. Yes, they always had lingering feelings, or there was a little subtle, but y'all fucked when she was still with another man, when she was still with her boyfriend of 5 years. If y'all get in a relationship, whether it's 2 months from now, 6 months from now, years from now, I think there's still that place of like, someone asks you, oh, how did y'all meet? Oh yeah, we met, we know each other for a bit, but then I fucked him while I was still with my man. Like, I just think there's always that baggage. No. There's always that baggage. So you disagree?
I disagree with that for a few reasons. The first of which is, of course, they had history prior to that.
They didn't date? Did they date?
She was still with Daniel. I think they did have some romantic.
Girl, I don't think they. No,
I have to go back.
You know what? Look. It's because it's fresh on me because I had to binge it because I was binging it to prep for the show. They did not date because they talked about how there's always been that kind of lingering attraction. Because there's that moment when they're on the couch before they end up fucking, where she's basically like, "Well, why didn't you ever say anything? Why didn't you ever like that's his moment to kind of say that actually I did have feelings for you." So I don't think they definitely never dated.
Okay, so here's the second piece.
Okay,
I know.
All right.
I know couples who have been married for 20 plus years
One
where
of them
they
cheated.
came together. Why one of them? Yeah, they basically one of them was the other man or other woman. Like, and they've been together 20 plus years. I can think of one off the top of my head.
Okay.
They're like in their 70s now.
So what does the spirit say about that? Is it just like, well, they just couldn't hold on to the man, so I saved them from that relationship? Like, what is...
Exactly.
Oh, God.
Exactly. And I'm just saying, but what I always say too, if you can take my man, you can have him.
No.
Honestly, if you could take my man, you can have him, because basically it was something I wasn't doing that you cared. So, I'm not trying to be...
But then you think that relationship's going to work? Because that's basically you're making the case that, like, you think Daniel and Issa could work.
I do. I think Daniel and Issa could... I think just maybe they have their... I'm not sure they could work, just because they both have abrasive personalities in specific ways that might not work with each other. But I love them together aesthetically. I love that he always supported her. I love when she tried to support him and his music and what he was doing. I just thought they had the potential for a healthier relationship. Something, just did not work there.
Well, I don't think it's going anywhere either way, because right now she got Nathan in the picture, who is so fine. Oh, come on, light skin king. Like, he is... Oh my God, that man is so fine.
I don't think he's that fine.
What? What is happening? Do we know each other? Like, do you not think you're really telling me Daniel... Okay, I'm not going to put you on the spot for Daniel.
Daniel is the finest man who's been on the show. We're not going to do this,
but...
Okay, Daniel is
okay, we're going to take Daniel out of it, but you don't... Do you think Nathan's finer than Lawrence? Or do you think Lawrence is finer?
No, I think Lawrence is better than
What? Man, do I have some bias toward light skin?
But I've had a lot of... I'm light skinned, and I've had a lot of bad experiences with other light skinned
Oh my God, I can't stand
So I feel like that
you.
might prejudice me. I'm not... I don't stand light skinned men anymore.
Oh, we're not going to do this.
I'm out of that phase of my life.
We're not going to do this.
No.
We're going to move on to the last thing I want to say about Insecure. Molly versus Issa. So are you caught up?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so she said I stay ready, so I don't gotta get ready.
I mean, I watch it live every week. Actually,
yeah, because that good cable that you're paying for, yeah, that'll do it.
But if you have the HBO app, I think you can watch it at the same time I'm watching it on TV. Actually,
okay, yeah, I just did the add-on through Hulu. But yeah, so Molly versus Issa. So spoilers for those of you who are not caught up on Insecure. Issa throws a block party. For the most part, it goes pretty well. I was like, all right, bitch, you did this. You might have a little event, you could be a little event manager, be doing stuff, did it for the community, have people show up. At first, it was a lot of white people, but, gentrification. But the fam came through. And along with the fam, Miss Molly came through, and they just been off. Like, they've just been off all season. And to be fair, I think partly maybe because I binged it so back to back that I think their cracks in their friendship have been there since the beginning. But basically, it really comes to a head. And they literally almost come to they almost start fighting. Like, literally almost comes to fists. Like, so basically the whole thing that Molly felt was, all right, girl. So basically at the end of the episode before, Issa's headliner had dropped out. And Issa basically, Molly's new Asian bae, quite sexy. I liked him better with long.
Yeah, he's sexy.
I liked him better with long hair, but that's a different point. Again, we talked about my hair thing another time. But Issa, Molly's new bae works at like Live Nation, so basically works at like a music agent, like music booking agency, or like live agency. So basically, like Issa asked Molly to ask him, like, hey, my headliner dropped out. Could you ask him to help me find somebody? And Molly had just kind of like smoothed things over because she had been working the most. I get it, girl. You're a partner and you're trying to press these new blacks. But she had been working the most.
A partner at a law firm.
Partner at a law firm.
But she's working towards. Is she a partner?
No, actually, oh my God. No, she's not a partner, but she wants to be on partner track. She wants to get on partner track.
Yeah, exactly.
Track. So I get it. But basically also she's really trying to prioritize having a good, healthy relationship and basically hadn't been getting any time to Agent Bay, and he was starting to feel it. So she had just patched things up with him, and then Issa comes through and is like, hey, girl. Mind you, they hadn't been cute, cool for a minute, have not had a good talk about how things have been off, but she still was like, hey, girl, I need some help. Can you ask Bay to like get me an ad? And she's like, actually, sis, I don't think I want to do that, but sorry. And she's like, okay. So what then ends up happening is Issa ends up catching up with Nathan, who I think is the most perfect man in the world. And Nathan asks her how stuff is going, blah, blah, blah. Basically, Nathan is best friends with Agent Bay, and basically finding out that like Issa doesn't have a hairliner, he offers to ask his friend for her. Like they literally live together, so offers to ask a friend for her. So works out, she gets to act. Molly doesn't find out any of this. When Molly finds out, shit goes down. So people are divided. Some people are like, oh, Issa should have let Molly know, or Issa shouldn't have gone behind her back about it. A part of me is like, Issa didn't go behind her back. Molly literally said, keep me out of it. Like, I don't want to be involved with it. So she didn't keep her involved with it. Like, she went through a different way. And also, a good reminder for some of y'all hoes, Molly wouldn't have had fucking Bay without Issa. Not only did, Molly met Agent Bay through Nathan, who Issa was dating at the time, but also when Issa went crazy with her whole ghost, I shouldn't say crazy, but she went off on her whole ghosting. I've been there, girl. That episode really triggered me. I felt that. Like, why you just disappear like that? But when she went stalking homeboy and went to his house.
Yeah, you have had that a couple too many times. You had a lot of niggas ghosting on you, bitch. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah.
I wasn't ready for that. Ooh, you threw me off a little bit. I don't know that I've had a lot.
I mean, we've all had it happen, but you've had it a few too many times. You've had it a few too many times.
I don't know that you need to put on record that I had a few too many dudes ghost on me. I've had a couple. I don't think no more, no less than other people.
Okay, girl. Keep telling yourself that. Okay.
Anyway, so, Issa went on her stalking episode, and Molly had a really bad date with Agent Bay, and they basically kind of started to reconcile. That moment kind of started to happen, which also Issa pushed for off the back of her. So really, she don't even have no man right now without Issa. But anyway, Molly's got shit with her, and they blew up. And again, she literally confronted her after doing, the Cupid Shuffle. Like, of all times, bitch, right to the Cupid Shuffle at this woman's event. Like, you could have held it on for a minute. Yeah. But Molly's not that girl.
She could have saved that. Molly could have saved that.
She's not that girl. She's not that girl. She's kind of like you. You sometimes can't hold. Like, you kind of like, if it really, like, I think sometimes you're good about holding stuff back.
I'm saved now. You bringing up my past?
You can bring up my past. I can bring up. Okay.
I'm saved now, girl. Yeah? I'm not like that anymore. I'm not.
Okay.
I mean, I used to blow up at girls at inappropriate times and prematurely. I have a history of that. I even lost a couple Judys over that. But, I might have. But, I've learned and grown, and I'm a different girl now. Yeah. I found the Lord.
Okay. All right.
And I think Molly just needs to find... I think she needs to find a lot of things. One of those things is therapy.
She's already in therapy.
Okay, but then I think she needs to find. I think her development is delayed for whatever. I think partially because she's been so career focused that she's neglected elements of her social development. And I don't think she should have had an issue with Issa going through Nathan to get to Asian Bay and to get another headliner, because this was Issa's baby. Like, this is her thing, her main thing that she's been working on for months. And okay, you don't want to be involved? Fine. Well, let Issa find another route. Don't interrupt her growth and her success because your relationship is fragile and you didn't want to ask him. Like, I think Molly totally overreacted. I really do.
Yeah. I think the only thing, it really comes down to communication. I think the thing that Issa could have done better was like send her a cute little text, not give her enough time where she could actually be self-destructive and try and fuck up things, but to be like, at the event, be like, hey, I just wanted to let you know, or before she got there, like, hey, just wanted to let you know, Nathan, I did get some help from Agent Bay, just letting you know, because then she could still be mad about it, but it's also like, well, I still gave you a heads up.
Exactly. But, yeah, and then Issa would have covered her bases as far as that goes. But Molly could have sabotaged her, though.
Right, but that's why I was like, wait till the event. Like, wait till... Well, I guess she could have... Or maybe, actually, she could have still tried to do some stuff. Damn it, Molly. Exactly. Damn it, girl.
Molly is just a problematic figure, right? I mean, and I actually really... I like her. I relate to her.
I was going to say, you relate to her, don't you?
I relate to her in a lot of ways, not like Molly, but she acted out. She really did she showed her ass this time, and I wasn't feeling that because I do have a lot of things in common with Molly, and a lot of the same things that she has needed to work on, I've needed to work on too. So it's just she's a little bit behind me, I guess.
Yeah. So curious to see how things turn out. We're halfway through the season, so we'll probably touch on Insecure again after the season ends to talk about it, which got renewed. Talk about Black Renaissance. Like Insecure got renewed for another season. Amen. Come on, Issa, do it again for the culture. So we're actually can kind of transition into listener mail, because our listener mail has to do with the last kind of thing we want to talk about today. So you can send questions, comments, anything you want, child, to ask them, ASKTHEM, at 2savequeens.com. You can also leave us those questions or comments by voicemail at 323-438-2827. So one question I got, I can go and read it without dying.
Ooh, what does our voicemail sound like, girl? FYI, I need to call that number one time. I'm curious.
What does it sound like to do it?
Yeah, I mean, what does the voicemail say? Like when you call
child, don't say nothing. Did you want me to record something?
Oh, okay.
It says there's no one here to answer this because I'm not answering. I have to look to see if do you want to be the voice? Do you want to record something for her? I bet there's a way to do it.
Okay.
All right, we'll take that offline. We'll look at that. We'll look at that.
Yeah.
So our email that I got is basically another short and to the point. What is happening in Black AF and who is it for? In Black Jesus' name, I pray. Amen. From Confused AF. So I think because I know who sent this email. So I spoke to the person, and they were basically and I had a conversation about Black AF actually with my sister, some family about it, but basically they didn't get it. They're a big Blackish fan, but they could not make it through it. I think they made it about halfway through, and they didn't get to the episode that we mentioned last week about Black media, where he had like Ava DuVernay and Tim Story and all those, and Issa.
The one with Tyler Perry, right? Perry. They didn't see that one.
He couldn't get to it, and like he just done.
That was the best episode.
Just done.
Really
and so I had a couple feedback from people. One is like some girls have come up. Mr. King Barris' acting, which I think I did mention, is a little rough.
It was atrocious. Yeah, his acting was terrible. It's terrible.
Some have come at, him kind of, he did talk about, I think I remember we mentioned it last week, he did talk about how part of the reason he wanted to act in the roles because he wanted to be able to say things that he felt like no actor would be comfortable saying. It's like, okay, girl. But, other people,
he could have taken a few lessons.
I mean, he's a busy man. I don't know his life. He's got 3 shows on TV. So.
Right.
But and the other thing that I completely blanked on is the fact that actually, he's divorced now from his wife. I completely missed that.
Oh,
so they
I didn't know that.
I think it was like a couple, maybe like 2015 or something like that. They actually had filed for divorce and then I guess worked things out. But then recently, I think in August of 2019, they officially got divorced again, like fully got divorced. So they are not together anymore. Because I was wondering, I was like, him and Rashida aren't super. I mean, he's acting, but I was like, there's a moment where they kissed at the end of the episode. I'm like, you kissing Rashida Jones? Like, she's married and she's an actress. But I'm like, you're not really an actor. Is your wife okay with this? But she wouldn't care because they're not together anymore. So.
Yeah. I hope she got some good money out of him.
Oh, I'm sure. 6 kids?
California, yeah, I'm sure.
And 6 kids?
That's half, girl. California is half.
So I think to kind of answer the question, I think it's worth saying, well, one, I'm like, girl, maybe we're the only ones who like Black AF. Because a lot of my friends have not been able to get through it. And it's kind of like, I know we have a kind of sense of humor. I think that show works for us. We're a little bit less earnest girls. Like, we are saved, but we're a little bit less earnest than some of our friends.
Yes. My family, so a lot of people in my family liked it too. I think they liked the Kardashian element of it, like the house that they lived in, the lifestyle. I think, and I like that part too. Honestly, I'm a girl who still turns on the Kardashians now. So, I love the lifestyle. I love watching wealth and rich people, and so I think that was one piece of it for me. Mm-hmm. But I think the storylines were, just the way that the family dynamic was and how it was really screwed up. And I think you like that element too, right? I mean,
I think it's just a show. it's, again, we're talking about Black Renaissance of TV and film. Like, it's a different type of Black family than we normally see. And I think it gets into a whole different, like, we could have a whole conversation about respectability politics. I think there's some girls who just more lean toward, we only show the best face of the Black community to other people, aka white people. But I think there's something about showing the mess and showing that actually there are families that are selfish and narcissistic and assholes and don't treat each other well all the time, that are also Black and that also deal with racism and misogynism. Oh, wait, no, what is it? No, misogynoir.
Misogyny.
Well, no, I want to say, well, there's like Black. Oh,
misogynoir.
Yeah,
misogynoir. Yes.
Yeah, tripped over it. But I don't know. I think for me, it's just something different. Like, in some ways, it's like, I hope it does get a second season because I think I want to see different types of shows. Like, I like Blackish, but for some reason, yeah, Blackish just spoke to me because it's just the kind of messy girl that I like.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, we could probably relate in some degree because we both have some messy family dynamics too.
That's true too.
I think I relate to pieces of the show, like, and elements of the show too. I really do.
Yeah.
I feel like, well, that's getting a little too it's getting a little too deep, but yeah, there are pieces of that show that I definitely relate to, honestly.
So, well, I think we'll leave that there. I don't think that person's going to continue watching, so it kind of didn't matter how we answered the question.
Oh, right.
But
I don't even remember what the question was.
Well, exactly. No, the question.
Who cares? I liked it. You liked it. Let's move on.
So moving on, again, you can send us emails to ask them at TuesdayQueens.com or leave us a message at 323-438-2827. So that takes us into thoughts and prayers. It's that time of the show where we give it's just a rant. But or just give some true thoughts on things, or take a moment to create some space in our heart and mind for something or someone who's dealing with things, or a group. So I have 2 this week, but I wanted to check with you, Miss Devereaux, to see if you had anything that you need to get off your chest.
I'm gonna let you handle this one this week.
Okay.
You got some good ones.
Yeah. And they're completely not related, and they're kind of like, in some ways, a bit different than what you've maybe been hearing. But so the first one is really to going a bit actually outside our country and kind of looking a little wider, thinking globally, goes to like the LGBT community in Korea. So we've been seeing a lot of Asian countries in some ways being really on top of what's been happening with the coronavirus. Korea definitely was at the forefront of that with doing like drive-through testing, things like that, but also have been dealing with their own kind of issues, there was a big spurt of cases that even happened, and why they had to accelerate their response through a church there. But ultimately, they've been having some recent increases again, but this has actually been coming from the gay community there. Because I don't think Korea is doing lockdown. I'm not positive of it. But, being gay in Korea, and again, I'm saying this as Black gay man, but being gay in Korea, so it is kind of accepted, in quotes, but LGBT marriage, gay marriage is not legal there. In some ways, it's one of those things that is generally hidden under the rug, is quite different. Because a lot of the Asian countries are very much family focused, family first. So there are a lot of men, especially kind of talking about like gay men specifically, kind of focusing on that part of the LGBT community, that live a very closet life, that they may even have families and relationships, but still do things on the side. But basically, there's a part of Korea called Itaewon where there's a lot of bars and clubs, and there's been a rise of cases there. And the response, I find that has been very homophobic, with people even encouraging people to out those people, condemning them, wanting them to be killed, murdered. Mind you, that part of the reason y'all cases got so high to begin with because of a church. So it's like, wow, y'all are real quick to come at these people who are just trying to live their lives. And yes, they could be more responsible about it. I get it. But it's just clearly become a new kind of, what's the word for it?
I think it was only one person in the club who sparked the outbreak among, that spread to maybe 19 people. And because I guess he went to maybe 5 or so gay bars in that district. So,
but it's just clear that
really
it's just clear that they're using them as a scapegoat. There's been and like these real pushes. Like, thankfully, the government actually is being a bit more measured about it, like even saying that like, hey, you can still come in and do testing and it be, we'll keep your identities private and not to worry about that sort of thing. But literally people wanting people to get outed, people to get hurt, and just to see the kind of the scapegoat, kind of connecting to that anti-blackness conversation we were having a bit earlier with what's happening in China, like seeing how Black people are being scapegoated there to kind of deflect from the government's response. Like here, here's LGBT people or gay men specifically who are being attacked, and really already it's not great. Like you have to be so brave, I think, to be openly gay. A lot of people lose their families over it when they have to come out. I've gone down this whole tunnel of like watching YouTube videos about gay life in Korea. It's just become, I think, because I watched some Korean dramas and things like that, so I've been curious about it because there aren't a lot of depictions of LGBT lives. So there's still a lot of stigmas. There's still a lot of homophobia there. It is, there are a couple Korean musicians or actors who've come out, but maybe like 4 like in total. So it's something's changed, but it's still very on shaky territory. And this is one of those moments where like definitely keep them in your prayers because they're really going through it there. My other one is a bit closer to home, and it's about some layoffs that are recently happening. I think on Wednesday or Thursday, a lot of layoffs were hit BuzzFeed. BuzzFeed UK is almost shut down, got rid of quite a few people. BuzzFeed has done some really great, done some really great journalism around,
investigative journalism. They've done a really great job with that. Yeah,
so some layoffs both hit their UK news bureaus, and I think some is here as well. And Vice on Friday announced quite a few layoffs. And thankfully, like some of the reporters and industries that I follow were kind of safe, but there were plenty of people that lost their jobs. And I think in general, I think online media, online journalism is really going through it. I mean, it's always been the most, that's a area that has been fighting in recent years for unionization because of how often the media territory, especially like online media, both constricts and then separates and splits. And, they get, MTV decides they want to do news. And then, a year or two later, they think news isn't really working because Facebook is more focusing on video. So they get rid of their whole news department. Then they find out Facebook, because they're evil, fucking lied about it and wasn't really pivoting to media. So they got rid of all these people for no goddamn reason. So, I, for a minute, was thinking about going into online media. Like, I've written a bit for Huffington Post and things like that. And LT just felt like such a precarious type of career to have. And I mean, again, there's a type of freelance that even like trying to be a writer, creative, that's one thing, but to do online journalism when you have to wait for invoices and you're never sure when you're going to get paid, it's a really hard lifestyle. And they've recently been pushing for unionization because of that. But even still, we're seeing these tons of layoffs, and knowing, so much of the conversations we're talking about, thinking about all of the things that we've been mentioning in news stories, like the press has been so fundamental to that. So I think it's something to really keep thinking about, because those things are also going to be happening and are happening at local newspapers. They have already been having a hard time in recent years, and they've been going out of business or getting bought up and shut down or getting taken over by Republicans. Even thinking about, like, you can't just always rely on like the Miss New York Times and Miss Washington Post for everything, and they only have so much resources even for them. So definitely, there's something there I just wanted for us to think about.
Yeah, even they do layoffs sometimes. Like when, even New York Times and Washington Post, they have done layoffs in the past when times have gotten hard. So we can't, all the media really is important. Yeah, honestly.
And to think about
local news, online news, and elsewhere.
Yeah, so definitely to keep that in our prayers. Journalists and writers and professionals in those arenas are going through, because I think it's already a hard time and it's not getting easier. So that was kind of all I had on my spirit for today. And
well, yeah, that was a word. I mean, because both of those issues are important. Like, I think sometimes it's very easy for us as Americans to get so wrapped up in our own news to forget about the plight of people elsewhere. So I really appreciate that, you highlighting the homophobia in Korea and within the context of coronavirus. I really do.
Yeah, thank you, girl. She tries her best. So that's our show. Thank you, as always, for spending a little time with us. We really appreciate it. We hope you all continue to stay safe and healthy and saved. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at 2SavedQueens. Please feel free to like, share, subscribe. We're also on Apple Podcasts and iTunes. Make sure to rate us and review us. And we may just read a comment on the show. And it's just really helpful with, leveling up, getting us up there. So do it. Tell your friends. If you don't like them, tell them anyway. Support Black and gay, support Black and queer. This is where we're at. So thank you for all of that. With that, we'll see you next week. But do you have a final word for the children, Miss Devereaux?
Final word for the children today.
Wear your mask.
Definitely, girls. Well, for the girls who stopped taking their PrEP, girls, it might be time to get back on it for the summer. I'm not encouraging anything, but I think girls are already out here on the apps doing what they're doing, or about to for the summer. So, girl, start taking your pillows again. And make sure you got condoms and lube ready, honey, because I can tell the girls are already out. They're already out and ready to go. So, yeah, stay safe, and stay safe.
Thank you. All right, see y'all later.